Miss me? Didn't think so. I'm Lindsay, and this is my review for Us. Us is the latest horror movie from Jordan Peele, writer, producer, director, who also did Get Out, which won an Oscar for screenwriting. So there was a lot of hype around this film because Get Out was so good and so well received and so well done that this sophomore effort has a lot riding on it. I don't think this movie is as good as Get Out was. Basic storyline is family, mother, father, daughter, son, and it's summer vacation. They've come to their summer house. They go to the beach with their friends one day, and that night at their summer house, their doppelgangers or doubles show up. Very creepy, and all hell breaks loose. I thought this film was shot very well. I thought it was, for the most part, very well written. The characters were very well done, and the acting for the most part was very good. Lupita Nyong'o was excellent. She has these giant eyes that are so expressive, and you feel everything that's going on. Winston Duke is really good. It's pretty funny in some parts. The kids were good, because a lot of times with kid actors, it can go really bad really easily, but no, I thought they did a great job. And I thought they did a very good job of juxtapositioning the real people with their doppelgangers, because it's them, but a very twisted version of them. So like something that the real person does would be kind of horrifically twisted into something that the doppelganger does as a personality trait. The movie starts out with a screen of text. I'm not going to say what it is because it leads into things that are not put out there in the trailer. But it really gets your brain going as to like, okay, where is this going to fit in? But then you get the nice opening horror feeling from the opening stinger. It's very creepy. You're following this little girl around. It's at night. It's at a carnival, and she goes into a hall of mirrors, and it's very creepy. And once that opening stinger is finished, and it kind of sets the tone for the entire film, you get the nice opening credits. The Us is in big red letters, and you really get a sense of all the characters. The family, everyone is very well defined, and their roles and their different personalities and how they interact with each other and how they get along with each other. You don't get a lot of information as far as like what they do or where they're originally from, things like that. And you don't need that. You don't need all that background information. What you really need to know is that this is a family, this is how they interact, and this is what their interpersonal relationships are. That's really all you need to know. And you get little sprinklings here and there of Lupita Nyong'o's backstory, and you get little pieces here and there, information about the kids, what their interests are, what they're good at, and that plays into when the doppelgangers show up. I think for the most part it's paced very well. There wasn't a time when I felt bored or like just waiting for something to happen. I wasn't really scared by this movie. I mean, it takes a lot to scare me. There's a few jump scares, but there are definitely some very creepy images and imagery and musical stabs and things like that. It's got a very creepy atmosphere to it for the most part. There's symbolism everywhere in this film. Jordan Peele loves symbolism. In this, there's numbers, there's white rabbits, there's circles, and they all work on different levels. And you get a lot of nice themes as well. You get themes of guilt, you get themes of motherhood, fear, self-doubt is a big one, self-sabotage, and appearances. Elizabeth Moss's character and her husband were very well written and acted. They had some of the more comedic moments, and I really loved how her husband's character is kind of a douche, even as a doppelganger. And speaking of that, there is a lot of moments of levity in this film. I mean, it's not heavy-handed, it's just sprinkled throughout. A couple of them are a little grown-ish, but most of it works. I don't think that the ending is a huge surprise. It wasn't a huge surprise to me. I kind of felt it going that way about midway through, and we'll talk a little more about that later here in a minute when I get to spoilers. I really liked the costuming and stuff that they did for the doppelgangers with the red jumpsuits, the sandals, the driving glove, and the pair of scissors. It's a very iconic, symbolic look. It's almost cult-like. All right, spoiler time. I really like this movie a lot. However, I have big problems with the ending. I liked the ending. It's very interesting. All the ideas in it are very interesting about these doppelgangers being created in all these tunnels underneath the United States. I'm assuming it's just the United States. They didn't really get into very much of it. And they kind of explain the purpose behind creating these doppelgangers. They just kind of allude to that they would use the doppelgangers to control the people up above. So I don't know if that's like they would take the doppelganger and replace the person up above to get them to do what they want. I don't know. They don't explain that. Some of that stuff you don't need to know, but I was left with so many questions because of this ending and just the logistics of it all and just the mechanisms of this tethering. Because when you see this underground area, especially when you see it in the flashbacks, you see Lupita's younger character up on the real world walking through the carnival, and below you see her doppelganger walking through these tunnels. And as the real Lupita looks over and sees something like people on a carnival ride, the doppelganger below sees those people and they're not on the carnival ride, but their bodies are moving and they're placed in mass together like they're on a carnival ride. So she would look over in a room and there'd be all these people stacked up and making motions like, you know, like they're on a roller coaster and stuff like that. And it didn't come off weird or creepy, it just came off as kind of funny and kind of dumb. Just, I don't understand why they would mimic those actions so closely, especially because you're on a boardwalk, and so do all those people just stay at the boardwalk? Because the more I think about it, the more confusing it is and the more it falls apart, because evidently everything that the actual person goes through, the doppelganger has to go through some sort of terrible version of that. Like when the people are eating up on the real world down below, they're doing the same motions, but they're like shoving raw dead rabbit in each other's faces. And I think the biggest thing is there was no scope to these underground tunnels. They evidently contain one of each and every one of us in the United States. That's millions and millions and millions of people. So I don't know how they have room for all of them. And it's like, okay, are they all interconnected underground? So if someone travels or moves, does that person underground have to somehow move through all the tunnels to the new place where this person is? And if they're tethered, they have to do every single motion and thing that their real person does. So how did they have time to plan this uprising? And maybe I'm way overthinking this and I just need to let it go. But it brings up so many questions that I don't understand about this underground thing and what purpose it serves and how it works for the most part. Because the twist is that there's people living underground, but the secret twist is that in that flashback scene of Lupita's character as a child, her doppelganger switches with her. So this whole time, the person that we thought was Lupita is actually the doppelganger, and the doppelganger is the real Lupita. And the doppelganger just takes her down into the tunnels and handcuffs her there and then leaves. And so the real child Lupita is just stuck in those tunnels. I don't know why she wouldn't leave, because there were no guards or anything like that. I don't understand why she would stay down there. I don't know. There's a whole lot of questions and stuff that's just kind of at the end. The more I think about it, the more it falls apart. It's a very interesting and cool idea. I really like the idea behind it, but the execution did not quite mesh for me. But I don't think that ruined the movie in any ways. It's well acted, it's well written, it's well directed. It has a lot of interesting stuff going on. It just lacked in execution towards the end, in my opinion. But yeah, just more and more questions come up. Every time I think about the mechanism, the tethering part of it, because, okay, the fake Lupita went up top and had kids, and the real Lupita stayed below and she had kids. But what the big issue was with the doppelgangers was they were an exact copy, but they didn't have a soul. So do the kids in the real world have a soul or not? I don't understand how things come into being. It's just kind of a mess the more you think about it. And there's a lot more to discuss with this film. You know, the significance of the different symbols, the Bible passage, Jeremiah 11:11, themes of xenophobia that Jordan Peele talks about in interviews. But I just saw this movie like 2 hours ago, so I'm really still processing and going through all of it. I still need to make sense of a lot of things in my head before I can completely think it through. I think this is a movie that needs to marinate a little bit, and maybe a second watching would shine some light on the more muddy aspects of the ending for me. But I mean, I would definitely recommend it. It's not as good as Get Out. It's just not. But I think it's completely competent. It has new and fresh ideas. He does borrow from some older movies. I mean, there's things with The Shining, there's things with funny games, all sorts of stuff like that. There's little nods here and there and homages, things that were kind of pulled image-wise out of those films. And I think the biggest strength of this film is that the first act of it pulls you in so much. It's like wrapping this nice, comfy horror blanket all around you. But yeah, definitely recommend it. Go see it. Once you do, let me know what you think. If you had any questions about the ending, or if you think you understood it a little better than I did, or if you think I'm overthinking it and should just shut up and enjoy the movie, you can tell me that too. Well, that's gonna do for this review. Until next time, this is Lindsay signing off. I'll check you later.